northern Wisconsin. In the late 1800s, this was a world of towering pine, deep snow, and silence. A wilderness stretching from horizon to horizon, waiting for the men who would change it forever. Before the logging boom, Price County and the surrounding Northwoods were dominated by immense stands of white pine, hemlock, maple, and birch. For generations, Ojibwa and Menominee communities lived within these forests, harvesting sustainably and navigating the rivers that wound through the land. But after the Civil War, America's cities were rising fast. Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Louis needed lumber, mountains of it. And the Northwoods held some of the richest timber in the nation. The rush north was inevitable. By the 1870s and 1880s, logging companies poured into Price County. They acquired timber rights through federal land cessation, state sales, and enormous railroad land grants. Timber cruisers, men with sharp eyes and sharper instincts, scouted the best stands. Once a promising tract was found, a camp was built, and the cutting began. These companies operated like mobile empires. When the timber was gone, they packed up and moved on, leaving behind cut-over land, stumps, and the beginnings of future towns. Logging camps were rough, isolated, and temporary. A typical camp housed 40 to 80 men, loggers, cooks, blacksmiths, teamsters, and river drivers. Days began before dawn. Men rolled from their bunkhouse bunks, pulled on frozen boots, and trudged into the woods. The temperatures often plunged below zero. Snowstorms could bury equipment overnight. Injuries were common: falling trees, axe wounds, crushed limbs. Meals were heavy and constant: beans, salt pork, bread, and pies. The cook was the most respected man in camp after the foreman. Despite the hardships, camaraderie ran deep. At night, the bunkhouse filled with stories, jokes, and tall tales, seeds of the lumberjack folklore that still echo through the Northwoods. Logging was a winter industry. Frozen ground allowed heavy sleds to move logs. Snow-packed tote roads became icy highways for horse teams pulling massive loads. Most loggers worked from November through March, and they weren't paid until the end of the season. Months of labor, often dangerous, always exhausting, before seeing a single dollar. When payday finally came, many men walked into towns like Park Falls or Phillips and walked out broke, their wages lost to saloons, gambling halls, or company debts. Once winter ended, the real spectacle began: the spring log drive. As ice broke, logs were rolled into the rivers. River drivers, known as river pigs, guided them downstream with pike poles, breaking up jams and keeping the flow moving. It was dangerous work. One slip could mean drowning beneath tons of timber. From Price County, logs traveled south along the Flambeau and Jump rivers to the Chippewa River. From there, they floated to Eau Claire, one of the largest mill centers in the Midwest. Other logs moved east toward Merrill and Wausau, feeding the mills along the Wisconsin River. At the mills, steam-powered saws turned raw logs into boards, shingles, and beams, fuel for America's growing cities. Once cut, lumber traveled by raft, wagon, or more and more by rail. Great Lake schooners carried Wisconsin timber to ports across the Midwest. Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Louis consumed millions of board feet each year. Wisconsin lumber built homes, factories, rail depots, and entire neighborhoods. The Northwoods shaped the American landscape one board at a time. By the late 1800s, the river system was reaching its limits. The best pine near the waterways had already been cut. Hardwoods too heavy to float remained untouched. Logging companies needed a new way to reach deeper forests, and that's when everything changed. The arrival of the railroad in Price County in 1873 revolutionized the industry. Rail lines opened vast new tracts of forest, allowing year-round hauling, and made hardwood logging profitable. Camps expanded, towns grew, and mills multiplied. The river era faded. The Iron Road took over. And northern Wisconsin was never the same.